Magandang Lunes po sa inyong lahat. June 6, 2022, Monday. Ito po ang The Stock Market Today. Kung first time niyo po sa channel na ito, ako po si Benji Chodoro, isang retired bank officer na nagsimula mag-invest sa Philippine stock market noong 2007. Ginagawa ko po ito araw-araw. And I also report the latest news on your favorite and most active stocks. If you like the content, I invite you to subscribe. And kung meron po kayong stocks na gustong ipa-review using technical analysis, paki-comment lang po sa comment box at aking ipa-prioritize. Hindi po ako financial advisor. Anything I say in this channel ay hindi po financial advice. Get well soon, Mari. I hope you recover. Your dad and I and our family are praying for you. Ang ating news ay isang special feature muli tungkol sa Marcos presidency, kasamang ating financial headlines at ang resulta ng trading sa ating PSE ngayong araw, June 6, 2022, dito lamang sa The Stock Market Today. Okay, so let's start with our financial headlines from BDO Securities. Paul says May inflation likely surged past 5%. So sabi nila 5 to 5.8% ito, no? Then consumer confidence soars to 4-year high. Dole says wage hikes in 14 regions to take effect in June. Economic team of Marcos Jr. aims to lower deficit to GDP ratio to 3% by 2028. Kasi currently yung deficit to GDP ratio ay 7 to 8%. And then in company news, bank's NPL ratio, NPL is non-performing loans. No? So sa mga bangko po ito, the bank's NPL ratio falls below 4%, which is a bit of good news. Then ASEAN cancels planned share swap with ASEX or ACEX. Then petrochemical firms seen at risk without import duties. Okay, ang ating pinaka-news ay galing po sa Business World. No? This is a special feature or a commentary on the Marcos presidency. Philippine history circles back with continuity president. So, BBM is viewed as a continuity president. Ferdinand Bongbong R. Marcos Jr., 64, won the Philippine presidency by a landslide based on a message of unity and not much anything else. He skipped debates, wary of traditional media known to bring up his father's 2-decade autocratic rule and leaving both his staunch supporters and critics guessing about how he really plans to run the country once he's in control. Mr. Marcos will start his 6-year rule on June 30, heralding the return to power of the country's most notorious political family that was driven out by a popular street uprising in 1986. He's widely seen as a continuity president, picking up from where President Rodrigo Duterte left off, including his infrastructure program that was delayed by a coronavirus pandemic and reviving remittances and a consumption-based economy. While these programs led to some measure of success during President Duterte's time, it can prove disastrous when these are applied now, said Leonardo A. Lanzona, who teaches economics at the Ateneo de Manila University, citing the Philippines' rising debt. He also said Mr. Marcos should address corruption that has slowly crept in the final part of Duterte's administration. Unless corruption is checked, further declines in credit ratings are expected, making it more difficult to access funds from abroad. Mr. Marcos faces a tricky balancing act of supporting economic recovery and containing the country's rising debt. Of Oxford economics lead economist Cian Fenner and Assistant Economist Makato Chuchia said in a recent note. The Philippines' budget deficit widened during the pandemic as revenue collections remained lackluster. The Philippine economy grew by 8.3% in the first quarter, slightly faster than government expectations. And that could give Mr. Marcos time to adjust and think of his game plan. But analysts said growth remains unstable, with consumer spending likely to be stunted by rising inflation, worsened by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Like Mr. Duterte, Mr. Marcos is likely to pursue closer trade and investment ties with China, even if a shift away from the United States is likely and will be frowned upon by Filipinos wary of China. Aside from continuing Mr. Duterte's infrastructure program, the public should expect an economic recovery that highly relies on a 1980s labor export policy and consumer spending, said Emmy Ruth Gianan, an economist at the PUP. There are heavy trade-offs for these macroeconomic solutions, which might no longer be responsive to the changing times, she added. Filipino labor export could worsen our brain drain suffering while prioritizing infrastructure over equally important human capital investments is also not good, Ms. Gannon said in a Facebook Messenger chat. She also expects Mr. Marcos to continue Mr. Duterte's tax agenda that sought to further lower income taxes, though lower corporate taxes could mean a greater burden on individual taxpayers because we will be doing much of the economic heavy lifting. Marcos Jr. did not really lay down a platform of governance, Ms. Gianan said. To what criteria can we make him accountable if there is no benchmark to begin with? Our expectations are set so low that any meager change can be construed as an improvement. Mr. Marcos faces serious economic obstacles, and economists said his lack of experience in policy making is unlikely to inspire confidence. Economic managers are going to be critical for the next several years because of the pandemic and economic crisis, something that we are looking at very carefully, Mr. Marcos told reporters days after an unofficial count showed him headed for a landslide victory. With old names being tapped to be part of the Mr. Marcos cabinet, economists and political analysts worry that his government might fail to respond to the changing times. Okay, so the last two paragraph goes, he will have a legitimacy ticket to do anything he wants. John Robert Go, who teaches political science at the University of the Philippines, said in a messenger chat. He might initiate some policies, but these would be more or less preserve the status quo, if not exacerbate the deeply oligarchic nature of our politics. Marcos did not run with a progressive political change platform, said Robin Michael U. Garcia, a political economy professor at the University of Asia and the Pacific. We should not rule out the possibility, but I think he will not walk down that road. Okay? So yan yung po yung ating special feature on our special news on the Marcos presidency with a commentary of various political and economic analysts and professors. So before we go to the Philippine Stock Exchange Index, let me read some comments here, and this comes from Moneywise PH. Great video, sir. Nakaka-inspire po kayo. Salamat po, Moneywise. I think Moneywise is also has a video on the stock market. Marami pong salamat. So let's now go to the Philippine Stock Exchange Index on what happened today. Okay. The PSE index declined by 24.52 points or 0.36% down. to close at 6716.88. So let's put up our indicators. A few days ago, I said that the PSE index, the formation of the chart of the PSE index looks like an inverted head and shoulders, which means that formation is a bullish formation. The candlestick is slightly higher, pero it ended lower, by 24 points today with RSI at 48, slightly down. Okay? Now, I saw this chart from BDO Securities which I wanted to share with you. And ang sabi niya dito, it's about the index, Ang trend niya is downwards, and yung kanyang price ngayon or last Friday was 67.41, pero ang target price niya is 68.50. So yung technical indicators niya na MACD and well, I don't know what PSAR is, which indicate an upward movement, while the bearish movement is yung mga lagging indicators, yung 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average plus volume and RSI are bearish. So yun po yung sinasabi niya. So mixed po yung kanyang prognosis of the Philippine index, but ang tingin niya ay tataas pa ito, but the general direction would be downwards. Okay, so yung ating market activity naman, 134 companies declined, 60 advanced while 47 remained unchanged. The all-share index also declined by 0.46%. All the sectoral indices are down, and this was led by, well, except for properties, which gained 2.08%. Mining led the losers at 2.15%. Dito naman sa most active, so we will be doing the top 6 of the most active stocks. So let's do SMPH, ASLAG, which had a listing date today, and then Converge, AC, SCC, and JFC. Okay? So ano po ang gagawin natin na stocks, the 6 most active stocks today. Let's start with SMPH muna. Si SMPH ay, naku, tumaas si SMPH, ha? At meron siyang, what happened here? Gaining 1.55 points, 1 peso 55 centavos or 4.09%, ha? And last Friday, it gained 2.02% or 0.75. Ngayon, nag-double siya, So it's now reaching resistance area. Nandito po ang resistance, Nasa 39.64 or almost 40, ang resistance area. And bullish na po si SM. You'll notice, meron po siyang gap up dito. Ano kaya nangyari dito? May news kaya to? Tingnan natin ang news kung meron, Wala naman, mukhang market sentiment. Nasa SM po ako kahapon at marami pong tao, Sunday crowd, the ordinary Sunday crowd, but there were a lot of people. Mahirap mag-park. In fact, nakapark na po ako sa may bandang dulong-dulo na, So, the mall business is gaining plus the real estate, So yan po si SM Prime Holdings. It continues to move upwards and meron pong gap up po dito. Yung mga indicators po natin ay under the candlestick. Meron siyang dividendo, nagbigay na po siya ng May 24. The earnings is up. So it's moving upwards, Ngayon po, yung kanyang movement ngayon ay meron pong slightly above average volume. So, this would mean that pwede pong mag-pull back to in the coming days, or Maari mag-consolidate po muna ito o magkaroon ng pullback before moving upwards. RSI is also bullish at 63. Hindi pa naman po overbought. Okay, next is ASLAG. Ngayon po yung listing date niya. ASLAG in Kapampangan means light. Okay? So, RASLAG is renewable light. So, nag-open po siya at 248 or 48, what do you call this? Anong percentage nito? 24% up, I would say, no? 24% up, but it ended up 250. Tingnan natin yung 15-minute chart. Yan, ano? So, nagkaroon ng profit taking until it ended at 205. 2 pesos po yung IPO niya. Pero wala pa po tayong comment dito dahil konti lang po. First day lang po ito. Okay? Then after ASLAG, Converge. Si Converge, naku, bearish si Converge. Okay? Continues to move downwards. And pinaka-resistance po nandito. So it's reaching oversold levels, ano, nasa 31 na po. But the support ay nandito po sa 22.04, nasa 23.85 na po si Converge. And resistance is nasa 30.52. And it's a huge drop, ano, 1.35, but the volume is within the average volume naman, ano. So 5.36, pero relatively it's a huge drop. So it continues to be bearish, si Converge. And then Ayala Corporation. Ayala naman ay naku, bumagsak si Ayala. 33.50. Ang bagsak 661. Pero kung titingnan po natin ang fundamentals ni Ayala based on BDO Securities, Ayala Corporation 1,050. So ngayon nasa 661.50, no? So based on Friday's prices, it's a 51.1% upside. So malaki po yung upside, and I think it's more than 51% na, no? Dahil 661 to, no? Bumaba po siya. Ngayon yung support niya ay nasa 658.85. Support and resistance, hindi po yan exact numbers, ano? But this is an area. So yung ating indicators are still above, meaning bearish po ang lagay ni Ayala with a great upside. Then SCC, okay, nag-profit taking si SCC, no? Although it continues to move upwards, and the support is here at 33.69. Ito po, dati pong resistance yan na naging support dahil meron pong resistance po dito at merong resistance din dito which is now support. So nasa 33.69 na po yung support ni SCC. But our indicators are still above, meaning na I think nagko-consolidate lang po, nagpo-pullback lang po ito, no? And the candlesticks, the 3 candlesticks here are the pullback candlesticks. So dito po ay nagkaroon po siya ng breakout with volume. So right now nagpo-pullback lang po siya. RSI is at 74, no? Bullish po, pero bukan nagko-consolidate lang po itong si SCC. And then finally we have JFC. Si JFC naman ay naku, talagang bearish si JFC. 200-120, no? 200-120, and the drop was really huge. Now I think the sentiment is more on the bearish side because yung inflation is telling on the Philippine economy. I think that's my take, ano, on the Philippine economy. So tingnan natin yung if there are any news on the stocks, ano. Philippine inflation still peak, sabi dito sa Philstar Business. Ngayon dito naman sa Business World, volatility seen as market awaits May inflation data. So I think it's still the inflation that's causing this in the Philippine stock market. And the price of Jollibee is now at support level, and support is at the 200 to 202 area, and it remains to be bearish, no? So it reached a high, 52-week high of 182 dito po sa bandang, sorry, 259 rather. So na-reach niya po ito noong February, but right now it's dipping to 201.20. Okay, so yan po ang ating report sa stock market. June 6, 2022. Ito po si Benji Chidoro, nagpapaalala, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagtangkilik at hanggang sa muli, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.